Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 culture shocks as a Malaysian student in France. I've been a student in France for the past 5 to 6 years now, and throughout my time, I've lived in different cities in France, and so I would say that I've been exposed to different French societies in different geographic locations in France. Now, coming from Malaysia that is situated all the way in Southeast Asia, I would say that there are indeed many differences culturally in both societies. The 5 culture shocks that I'm going to be sharing are based on lifestyle, food, and freedom of speech. So culture shock number 1 is la joie de vivre ou l'art de vivre. Now, this technically translates to the art of living and the joy of living. So people in Europe, especially in Latin countries, you get this impression that they work to live and they do not live to work. And there's a huge difference there, because that indirectly translates to a lot of value given to personal and family time. Now, there are a lot of holidays, especially in France, as a student or as a working adult, and these holidays are meant to be taken seriously. And what I mean by that is, if you're on a holiday, no one is allowed to disturb you. It is your time off work, and people have a mutual respect towards that. So for example, in a professional environment, if you were to leave on a holiday, your colleagues would play the backup so that they can sort of like hold the grounds while you are away. And obviously they expect the same thing in return. When you go to the south of France especially, you get this idea that people are sort of just going with the flow of life. You don't really see people like rushing or being stressed up. You just see them enjoying the little things in life. Even in Paris, which is this big and bustling city, you often see people taking their time to do things. And what I mean by this is, it's very common to see people reading in metros, or hanging out by the park, or finishing a cup of espresso over hours and hours of discussions. And one of my favorite things is when I see people alone, reading or writing, but just, enjoying that time by themselves. And so often when you see people sitting for hours over a cup of coffee, you wonder what could they be possibly talking so passionately about. And that brings me to my next point, the culture of debating. Now, the culture of debating is very important and present within the French society. They talk about everything. Human rights and freedom of speech hold a high value in the society. The French are encouraged to question and to form their own opinions, even on sensitive and delicate subjects. Everything here is open to discussion, and it is respected that you form your own opinion instead of following the mass. And so the French are very local people who are not afraid to question things, and they can debate about literally anything and everything. It's like a national sport. I've learned that it is very important to be open, because for a lot of topics, there isn't one answer that is either right or wrong. I find that in a lot of delicate topics, there's always this gray area, and it just depends on where you are on the spectrum of this grayness. Culture shock number 3 is how direct and frank the French can be. So it's very stereotypical that French people are often considered rude and cold. So the French are very direct and honest, but they are not rude. In fact, they are extremely polite. Like, if you go to a French bakery, or if you go to any shop for the matter, you are always greeted with a bonjour, and when you leave, like, it is mandatory here culturally to say thank you and goodbye. So French people are very polite, but that doesn't mean that they are warm. Because they are more reserved as a society, they do not come off as friendly or as accommodating as English speakers often turn out to be. For example, you will know if a French person likes or dislikes you. If a French dislikes you, he or she wouldn't bother to be nice on a surface level. They just wouldn't bother themselves to begin with. And so that usually means that in the beginning, it is often challenging to make friends, because they usually keep to themselves and mind their own business. But once you get to know them, they are completely open and just like every other human being. It was quite challenging for me in the beginning because I come from an English-speaking environment, but the more I got used to how the French are, I've actually grown to appreciate this aspect, because I feel like it's a lot less superficial and you don't need to spend your time worrying and thinking if a person likes you or not. Coming from an Asian society where we are very careful with how we word things, and we are often the type of people to avoid confrontation. The whole thing about French people being direct was quite difficult for me in the beginning, personally and professionally, because it was something that I was not at all used to. But then again, I got accustomed to it with time, and I've also grown to appreciate that sense of frankness and directness. Culture shock number 4 is the French delicacies. Now, French food has a very different taste profile compared to Malaysian or Asian food in general. For one, they eat a lot of cheese and a lot of meat that are not cooked in the same way as they are in Asia. So it took a lot of time for me to develop my taste buds to appreciate French cuisine. French gastronomy is also very special because it's not all about the food per se, but it's also about the dining experience. And so it's this whole package that they try to sell where you are a lot more mindful when you eat your food, because that means that you will enjoy it a lot better. Cuisine aside, French pastries are the best in the world. Like, there's something about the bread here. There's something about the flour. There's something about the butter. I'm pretty sure it's the butter, because you do not get pastries like this the moment you cross the French border. You have croissant and pain au chocolat here for like €1, and walking the streets in Paris in the morning is such a joy, because the moment you pass a bakery, it's like that smell of butter. Few of my favorite dishes also include confit du canard, which is this very tender duck with its crispy skin. I also really like their sweet and savory crepes. The last culture shock that I'm going to be talking about is the wellness aspect. The French in general are very, very sporty people. You see a lot of people of all ages exercising in parks, especially during the weekend. And 90% of my friends practice at least one type of sport. And a lot of them practice running and cycling. And when I say running and cycling, I don't mean like just as a hobby. They take it really seriously, because running seems to be a huge culture here that people do as a family. And my friends are all really good runners. During holidays, for example, it is very common for French families to go hiking or surfing or skiing. They don't just visit cities, which is what I do. They go on a vacation to a specific country to hike that specific mountain. And so culturally, I think it's very different from what I'm used to. And of course, with staying active and sporty, they also try to eat well. So it's sort of like this lifestyle as a whole. And what I mean by eat well is that they try to eat very natural and organic food. A lot of my friends have a garden in their family house where they plant and harvest and cook their own vegetables. Some even rear their own animals that they have for dinner later on. Being a vegetarian or vegan isn't a trend in the French society as compared to like the UK, for example, where you can easily find a lot of vegan and vegetarian alternatives. Here, a lot of focus is placed on how natural and how organic the food is. They put a lot more importance in the source and where the food comes from and how it was cultivated, rather than just what the food is. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video to be interesting or helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that would mean the world to me. And if you've had some time around French people, let me know in the comment section below if these are some of the culture shocks that you have faced and noticed. So that's all for today, and I'll see you in my next video. Ciao!